Yes?
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Augustus Humphreys.
The reporter. Well, you are late, young man. I have been expecting you all afternoon.
It was kind of you to see me today, Mr. Toombs.
General Toombs, young man. Your name again is?
Augustus Humphreys, sir. My editor gave me some information on your background, but I was hoping...
Come on in, young man. Come in. Let's get out of this damnable cold.
I was just hoping that you would confirm a few of the facts for me, sir. I don't want to take too much of your time.
Now, why is it you want to interview me? What is it you are hoping to write about me?
Well, sir, our newspaper's interested in you, sir, and it's been 20 years since the end of the Civil War.
Doesn't matter. I've never known a newspaper to quote me right anyhow.
Mr. Toombs, I was only...
General Toombs, sir. Where is your sense of history, young man?
General Toombs, I can assure you anything written about you will be accurate. And we'll make this interview as short as possible, sir.
How about a little nip to take the chill out?
Sir, I understand that you began practicing law right after you got out of Union College.
Practicing law. Son, in my day, I was the foremost lawyer in this state. I was so good, I could set free a little old flea charged with assaulting a dog. The state never saw my equal on the stump.
I believe you were one of the youngest men ever elected to the state legislature here in Georgia. That was back in 1837, wasn't it?
1837. 1837. That would be the year Julia and I purchased this home here in Washington, Georgia from Judge Harris. Lou would have been about 3 then, and Sally, she wouldn't have even been 2 yet.
Sir, you went on to serve in both the United States Congress and the U.S. Senate. I said you went on to serve in both the United States Congress and the U.S. Senate.
Yes. Yes, I spent 16 years in our nation's capital, and I fought everything from the damn Yankee abolitionists to the Mexican War up there. And I had to come back home here to Georgia and rewrite the entire state constitution because the fools were trying to sell the whole state to the railroad barons and the industrial monopolies.
Well, General, it certainly seems as if you've been through quite a lot in your time.
Son, I'm so old, I knew Andrew Jackson personally. I can remember the cold wind rattling the window panes in the halls of Congress the day Quincy Adams up and dropped dead. Lord, I'm so old, I even outlived the Constitution. Not that the Constitution was ever able to protect us from ourselves. It was a United States president and United States troops, not the Tsar of Russia and all his Cossacks, but the United States. Trampled on the Constitution and butchered 500,000 of us Southerners. By God, the enemy is us. And my own worst enemy, me. Always been my own worst enemy. Bob Toombs. My dear friend, Alex Stevens, declared that I might have ruled the continent if I had had a bit more self-control and a bit more self-discipline. Dear Alec, he was 90 pounds and a semi-invalid. But he was 90 pounds of pure will Damned if he didn't serve in the Congress and then become vice president of the Confederacy and then governor of the state of Georgia. All things in moderation, Socrates said. But then moderation and Bob Toombs have always sat on opposite sides of the church. I remember Stonewall Jackson said he liked strong drink, and because he did, by God, he never touched it. I admire a man with that kind of willpower. As for me, I prefer a life of enjoyment to one of endurance.
Mr. General Toombs, before the war, you were considered a political moderate. But, sir, if you don't mind me saying so, you don't exactly seem to be a moderate man.
A man may moderate as much as he pleases in politics, but a man moderate in life, he's a jackass.
Sir, I have Colonel Avery's history here, and he states that no man in Georgia did as much as Robert Toombs to precipitate the Civil War.
The man's a damn liar, and he's a fool to boot. Colonel Avery and his history of Georgia. Ha! I saved the state from seceding in 1850, and fool that I am, I boasted that the Union would stay together for 1,000 years. But Lincoln's election altered that situation.
So you took a strong stand in the territorial disputes of 1850. In fact, I believe it was your stabilizing influence that kept Georgia from seceding from the Union at that time. But, sir, by the time the war had broken out, you changed your views, hadn't you?
I became a fire eater. What else was a liberty-loving Southern gentleman to do if he was worth his cotton? I made sure that Georgia left that unholy Union, and because of that, and because I won't repent, they call me an unreconstructed rebel, foaming at the mouth like a rabid hound. Don't believe it. Don't you believe it, boy? You should have been here the night of Grover Cleveland's election. His house was covered with people. Everybody in Washington came out to celebrate, to hear my opinion on it. This room was so full you couldn't walk in it.
Sir, may I help you?
No, please. Thank you. Well, you might as well sit and sup with me, young man. The servants have obviously laid out a place for you.
Thank you, General, but I must be leaving.
Now, sit down. When will you reporters begin to learn some gentility and hospitality? I have eaten too many meals alone in this house since my wife, Julia, died. If Bob Toombs grants an interview, then Bob Toombs has a dinner guest.
If you insist, sir.
Are you married, young man?
No, sir. My work has been too demanding.
That is a shame. I spent over 50 years with the same dear, sweet, gentle woman. It's one of the blessings of long life.
Your family means a great deal to you, doesn't it, sir?
Yes. One of the curses also of long life is that you can outlive every one of them, everything that you love.
Sir, I'm curious to know, did you seriously believe that you would become president of the new Confederacy? What exactly was your relationship with Jefferson Davis?
My quarrel with Mr. Jefferson Davis began long before the convention in Montgomery. Mr. Davis is a product of West Point. The trouble with him was, and still is that he has an exalted sense of his importance. When I rode the train to Montgomery that rainy Sunday in February of 1861, I truly believed that I would become president of these Confederate States. And maybe it was my drinking. It's just a simple misunderstanding, but they failed to select me. The honorable delegates preferred a polite separation to a once-and-be-damned divorce. They chose Davis. Tragic mistake. For the South and for Bob Toombs, it was a crossroads of history.
Sir, what happened when Davis was chosen instead of you?
Well, Davis named me Secretary of State. I declined. Then later, I changed my mind and did join the cabinet. Because there wasn't a damn thing to do except talk. I carried the entire business of the State Department around in my hat.
In your hat?
In my hat. Plus, the other officers were incompetent, and Davis, well, he was a poor fool. That's about the best I can say for the man.
There was no love lost between you and Davis, I see. In fact, I believe that you resigned as Secretary of State of the Confederacy after only 5 months. You then joined the Army as a Brigadier General. Sir, I have a letter here from one of your fellow generals that I'd like to read to you, if I might. General Cobb writes, Toombs is drinking like a fish and making an ass of himself. His disobedience of orders is notorious, as is his disposition to shirk all positions of danger. His military career is a desperate failure. Sir, those are strong words. How would you respond to that?
Cobb was jealous of me. As one of its brigadier generals, I brought a breath of gentlemanliness to the Army of Northern Virginia. At the West Point, professors of murder disapproved of my social drinking and of my trips to Richmond, and they laughed. They laughed at my plans to take the war to the Yankees. In sum, they ignored a potential Napoleon.
But, sir, what about the Battle of Antietam?
Antietam. Antietam, where my gallant brigade time and again repulsed the Yankee divisions and saved the rest of the Army of Northern Virginia until reinforcements could arrive. What did I receive for it? A gunshot wound.
You were wounded, sir?
Well, of course I was. I was fighting a war. Anyway, when Lee refused to promote me to Major General, I resigned from the Army. Passed the remainder of the war down here in Washington, planting cotton and cursing the Confederate government.
I believe that's when you had to flee the country.
Yes, I did. Shortly after the darkness of Appomattox, we had already lost everything else. The Yankee occupation troops came to my house to arrest me, to take my pride. I swore I'd die before I ever let them cage and exhibit me like some wild animal. I grabbed everything I could and raced to the back. Well, Julia, my brave and loyal wife, the Yankees at the front door. She stalled them there. And I slipped out the back like a runaway slave and vanished. For more than 6 months, I hid from them like a criminal. I eluded their patrols at the Chattahoochee River, then I escaped into Alabama and from there to New Orleans, where I took a boat to Cuba and became an exile from my homeland. Finally, dear Julia joined me in Havana, and from there we sailed to France. Eventually in Paris, news came of my daughter Sally's death. Julia sailed back to Georgia, and I spent that Christmas alone in a Paris hotel room. God help me if I ever forget looking out on those streets. Seeing only the face of my darling daughter Sally, last of my 3 children. My heart, my life broke.
Sir, when you finally returned to Georgia, you were quite a hero in this part of the country.
I spoke of the individual and of liberty. And the crowds loved me. They cheered and screamed and applauded, and when I finished, they went right back to business as usual. The getting of money. What is Henry Grady's dream of this new South? Money. Money, that's all. Mark Twain expressed the essence of American morality today. He said, "What is the chief end of men? To get rich. In what way? Dishonestly, if we can. Honestly, if we must. Who is God? Money is God. The spirit of a new age." Oh, thank God I am old and half-blind and cannot see the corruption and smell the whoredom they have made of this nation. Hero.
But, sir, you stood as a symbol of defiance. There were millions of Southerners that felt as you did, who wanted to deny defeat.
Man, you sound like me. Just like me years ago. When I returned home to America from my exile, I was resolved to face the worst, even prison. Following a private interview, President Johnson allowed me to come back home to Georgia. But I would not and will not try to regain my citizenship begging for a pardon. I regret nothing. As to talk of the northern people forgiving me, I have nothing to say, as I have not forgiven them and do not expect to. I am indifferent as to the state of their feelings, just as Georgia legislators and editors are indifferent to the opinions of Bob Toombs. Oh, they sing my praises and deliver grand eulogies, but nobody listens to the rantings of a tired, half-blind old fool. Maybe this younger generation of Georgians would like me dead. Well, go ahead, play with your electric trolleys, your phonographs, your telephones. Who needs them? I don't need your fool pity. I want no peace, damn it. Peace and quiet make me ache. Even in this damnable darkness, I fancy I see things. The tender smile of my beloved Julia. The golden, waving oaks of autumn. The stifling July heat and the swirling dust filling my nostrils across from the passenger depot in Atlanta when I spoke to 1,000 people. And they all screamed, out-screamed the locomotives. I know I'm passing fast. Life's fitful fever is almost over. But I would not blot out a single act of my life